Welcome everyone to Quadrant 4 Politics. My name's Matt. I'm here with Riley. We're here to talk about political and ideological things along the conservative and libertarian points of view.
Wow, can they even hear you on the mic?
This is an NPR intro. What are we doing again?
Ask them to write into the email.
Oh, yes. Please contact us at quadrant4politics@gmail.com. That's with the number 4, quadrant number 4, politics@gmail.com.
Awesome. Sweet.
Okay, great. Let's start.
We are recording in a different room than normal, so apologies if the sound is different, but...
I just wanted to try a different opening as well, so...
No worries, yeah. It was fun.
It was fun to do a nice
yeah.
calm.
I'm sure the fans are going to enjoy that.
Oh, they'll love it so
They'll
much.
come in their pants over your voice. Just like, oh yeah, Matt.
That's
do that.
gross.
What is that? The ASMR. They want to have ASMR of your voice.
Oh my god, that stuff's a scam.
Yeah. Yes,
Picking
indeed.
a question from our political compass bag.
Yeah, we're doing a political compass test question. Good times.
Oh, I picked 2, and I'm gonna put the bottom one back.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, fuck the bottom.
The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Didn't we do a whole freaking thing on the death penalty?
We did, yeah, so this will be fun.
So should we do this question
Yeah,
then?
of course. Well, people who didn't watch that episode are going to want to know this one. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes.
As
and the
a
answers
libertarian.
the options are us. You know I'm going to reply with that. I'm going to say that a couple times. Strongly disagree, agree, or strongly agree are the answers.
Let me tell you how I feel, Riley.
This is a fun one. We've talked about this on the show before, but this is one where you're the libertarian stance and I'm the Republican stance.
I don't want to hear your argument about, oh, the person might be
Hold
innocent.
on. You need to say as a libertarian.
Okay, as a libertarian, I don't want to hear your argument about the person might be innocent or it's going to cost a lot for government or blah, blah, blah. What I don't like is the fact that our government has the right to take away...
You're making your own arguments.
What do you mean I'm making?
You're the one who says that the person might be innocent or that it costs more.
What I'm saying is I don't care about those arguments from the anti-death penalty side. My anti-death penalty approach, if you'd let me finish, is that we shouldn't have the death penalty because that should not be a right of the government to take a life of its citizens no matter what they did. We can lock them up and throw away the key.
Did you ever do research on that term that's pro-life through life?
Pro-life through and through?
Is that what it's called?
Or called womb to tomb? Yeah, womb to tumors.
Yeah, there's a term out there for it. I don't know what it is, but you're definitely that.
I am a womb to tomb, yep.
Yeah. Which is, it's kind of fucked up that this is why I have a problem with the two-party system, is because why are the people who are pro-life at the beginning, why do they also have to be pro-death at the end, you know? Like, that's so shitty. But anyways.
Pro-death at the end.
Well, I mean, as a Republican, you're expected to be pro-life at the beginning and also be pro-death penalty at the end.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I have a problem with, like, the whole idea of Democratic Republican is really stupid. That why does someone who's anti-abortion also have to be pro-guns?
Or why do people who care about animals' rights not care about fetuses' rights?
Exactly. That kind of stuff doesn't make any sense. That's why I violently dislike the two-party system.
That's why, as a libertarian.
That's why, as a libertarian.
But no, the other things I was talking about, such as they might be innocent or it might be cruel to the person, are concerns of mine. My biggest concern when it comes to the death penalty is the government being able to say to its citizens, you have committed, crime X, therefore the penalty is we are going to take your life.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the biggest overreaches government has, even though it's seldom used, which is another thing is a problem with it. It takes years for the execution to finally happen. I just read a story the other day of like a kid who was like a high school shooter like in the 80s before high school shootings were popular, and he's now 44, awaiting his execution. There's tons of, like, I have like a list of 7 or 8 things I don't like about it, but the number one thing is the government being able to take the life of its citizen. I'm in certain parts of me want to be like, okay, if it's a law enforcement officer, or if you're somebody serving a life sentence and you kill a fellow inmate, I'd like to say, okay, exceptions for those. And if that was the case, I'd be okay with it. But I think it's just easier to have a blank slate where we just say we don't execute our citizens.
So you think it's okay for police officers to kill someone in self-defense?
I didn't say anything about that, but sure.
No, you said something about police officers.
No, sometimes when there's legislation's brought forth in a state that says no more death penalty, they'll say, with the exception of somebody who kills a police officer.
Why are police officers so glorified?
Well, because you don't want to kill a police officer.
Well, I don't see why their life is valued
maybe
anymore.
It's a crime like in the midst of a crime, kind of. And it's also, I don't know that I phrased that right, but also with people in prison, if you're serving a life sentence, there is no deterrent for you not to kill your cellmate or whatnot. I mean, going to the hole or whatever, but some people just have nothing left to lose. So some have suggested if you kill somebody in prison, that should still be an option. And I mean, even just on just the basis of the death penalty, I understand it. I support it. You know, somebody did something massively horrible, and they probably do deserve to die. But that's not for.
You don't support it, but you understand the reasoning.
I definitely understand the reasoning. I just don't. I think it being done by pen and paper legislation, by the order of a judge, it's all just it doesn't sit right with me. So. What about you, though, Ren?
I am pro-death penalty, but I think it should be used very limitedly, if that's a word, I'm not sure, which is very much not a libertarian stance. It's very much a Republican stance. But I think obviously it should only be used in cases where, what is the legal term that they use in court? It's like you have to know... clear, and what is that term? Do you know that term?
Mitigating circumstance?
No. It's the jury.
Has beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. Obviously, I think it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
But all crime is supposed to be any punishment, even if it's a traffic ticket. It's supposed to be.
I think it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt to the public. There needs to be
a new level.
Several. Witnesses or video or photographic footage of it that absolutely confirms it, and the defense has to do their job of if there's something wrong with the witnesses or the video footage or the photo footage, that the defense, it's their responsibility to say this is what's wrong with it and prove it. But I only the people, there was one in Australia or in New Zealand. There was a shooter who was racist, and that's not really a good one because he's not from America. But there was an American shooter who was inspired by that one, who was racist, I believe, against Mexicans and Muslims.
The Walmart guy?
It may have been the Walmart one, yeah. And he wrote a manifesto saying that he's proud he did this. He's openly racist and a white nationalist, and he did this to inspire a race war, and he killed a bunch of people. It's there is no reason why that guy shouldn't just be sent to the fiery pits of hell, And you always use the argument of the death penalty costs the government more than it would cost to just jail them for life. It's I can go to the gun store and buy a gun for $400 and a bullet, and we can end his life right now.
That's true, but that's not how due process works.
See, and that's my problem with the justice system. Is I think it's good when the justice system moves slow so that all the evidence can come out. But with something like that, where it's clearly this person did it, there were several witnesses, there was even photographic and video footage of it, just fucking put a bullet in the guy's head. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why they don't just do that?
And what you're saying makes a lot of sense from an emotional standpoint, but from a legal and due process standpoint, once the person's been apprehended, you know, like if you got to put a bullet to stop them, like that's one thing. Once they've been apprehended, like that just becomes vigilante law. To just be like, all right.
Well, yeah, I'm a huge fan of superheroes, so vigilante law sounds good to me. But my point stands. I think like if we go into John Wayne Gacy's basement and find a whole bunch of children's bodies cemented into the walls, kill the motherfucker on the spot. You know, who cares?
What if he was framed?
Well, that's different. That would be for the, like, not kill him on the spot, like when you're at his house and say, oh, there's dead bodies in your basement, I'm going to shoot you right now. Like, obviously arrest him, take him to court and stuff. And it's the defense's job to prove that he's innocent. And if they can't do that, and it's clear that he's guilty, and the jury of his peers says, it's clear that he's guilty, just fucking put a bullet in his head.
Except
right
legally, it's not the defense's job. The defense can say absolutely nothing. It's the prosecution's job.
That's true. It is the prosecution's job, and the prosecution would be like, we found a bunch of bodies in his basement that had his semen all over them. It's like, clearly, you know, that guy deserves to die.
I mean, and, you know, for higher profile cases or multiple victims, that's, again, when I get into the, not high profile cases, I'm sorry, because, well, one person could be a high profile case.
Yeah.
But when we get into mass shootings and stuff, I'm more like, you know, I could support it in this situation. But again, when it's happening like 40 years after the crime happens, and at that point it's kind of like, why don't we just stop this nonsense process, you know? And so, I mean, I get your point, and I could be persuaded to support it. I just think, you know, it's kind of something, if we just follow suit of some of the other countries that have just completely stopped it, we might be better off. There might be no, you know, like, what benefit comes from executing somebody?
Another option would be fun is to find a remote island somewhere, and if we decide this person deserves to die, instead of killing them, fly them out to the remote island, just drop them off there, you know, kind of like a Hunger Games sort of shit. But that'd be kind of fun.
Are we?
I know that's probably cruel and unusual, but
it is. But for the sake of argument, is it just like only them on that island? Because
no, it would be all the criminals, and it would be like we'd find a remote island, like really far out, and be like, okay, we're dropping you off on this island with these other murderers, criminals, these other people who deserve the death penalty. We're dropping you there with no supplies. You only have what's on the island, and if you can get back to the mainland, you're a free man.
to kill again.
Yeah, like if you found a way to build some sort of raft, you know, some castaway nonsense, then if you get back to the mainland, then you're a free man.
So, you know, it's kind of like my plan where I say we should pay for all the citizens of Alaska to be evacuated to the mainland and drill it for oil. We could do that with Hawaii and put different levels of offenders on there.
Yeah.
No airports, no boats or anything. Just if they can find a way back to the mainland with no support, you know, and maybe there'd be like a sex offender island, a murder island, a multi-murder island, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's so many within the Hawaii chains, you know.
Well, I don't think... I think the death penalty should be saved for pretty much just murderous people. I don't think that rape is a reason to put someone to the... I think I am a supporter of the death penalty, but I'm a very limited supporter. I think even like a mass rapist, I don't know that person deserves the death penalty. I know there's a lot of women and feminists out there who have been raped who would strongly disagree with me, but I think... I'm more on your side with this, that the death penalty is kind of cruel and unusual, and putting them in jail for their life is better. But, you know, I also have a dislike for jail because public jails require tax dollars, and I'm against taxes, but private jails can be abused pretty badly by the private companies, and they can, like, make the government, like, it's an incentive for them to encourage the government to incriminate people because they make money from it.
Private jails are trash. Trash concepts.
The jail system is something I struggle with internally, but I think it's kind of like the best option we have, unless we decide to just put a wall around Kansas and put all of our criminals in a state, and that's like our, something kind of.
But then they can make a good life for themselves in Kansas, and
is
that punishment though?
Who cares? They're away from us. The whole point of jail is to get them out of society.
Sometimes, again, it comes down to that. But I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to it.
There was something I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it was. I was going to tell you, I grew up on Mercer Island, and Mercer Island, I don't know if you know this, but before the bridges were built, it was a juvenile delinquent place for boys. They would send juvenile delinquent boys there, and if you go to Luther Burbank, some of the buildings there are actually still the historic buildings, and there's little signs telling you what's going on there. And what it was, Mercer Island is in the middle of Lake Washington between Seattle and Bellevue, and they would send the delinquent boys there, and they'd pretty much be stranded on the island.
So it's like Alcatraz?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, just like Alcatraz, yeah, but for delinquent boys. And yeah, if you go to the Luther Burbank Park on Mercer Island, you can read those little tablet things that they have there that tell you the history of the island and about the buildings there and stuff. It's actually really cool. And, that and Alcatraz, I didn't even think about Alcatraz, are examples of sending criminals to an island so they can't get to the mainland. I like that idea a lot. But then they built the bridges, and Mercer Island became a place to live and stuff like that. So they changed that, but the history still remains. Pretty fun stuff. Matt's choosing another question from the I Side With questions. You don't want to choose that second one that you got from the political compass test?
I put it back in. I don't even know what it was.
It's probably that one that has its butt sticking out.
Well, we're not going to read it because we're not doing it. I want this one.
I didn't know choosing a piece of paper from a bag could be so hard.
I always have to be super particular about which one I want. Even though I don't know, but...
Yeah, these are randomly selected. I hope the plastic bag's not too loud.
Don't care. All right.
Oh, nice. What is it?
Do you support charter schools?
Oh, yeah. Let me read it. Do you support charter schools? Nice. This is actually perfect timing for this one because according to Reason Magazine, this is School Choice Week. Yeah, as a libertarian, apparently this is a school choice week, which is, I have a lot to say about schools, but it's also a topic that largely uninterests me because I'm not in school anymore, and I don't like children. But let's start with you, Matt. Do you support charter schools, yes or no? Do you know what charter school is?
So we had a vote on this in Washington again, within the last 10 years, and I don't remember how I voted or the outcome, and I was super educated on it at the time. I can't quite remember now, except for it's got to do with school choice or whatnot. Yeah. But why don't you give us your explanation, Riley?
Well, gosh, I can talk about education forever because there's a lot of things I have.
Why don't you talk about charter schools?
Well, I think school choice I'm obviously in support of because I think government-run schools are just absolutely terrible in every single way. I could go on and on about that, and maybe I will one day. Maybe I'll do a solo podcast where I just talk shit about schools for an hour. We'll see how that goes. But charter schools, yes, I support them because I think school choice is good. I think that choice and competition are what makes any industry better, and charter schools are oftentimes they're actually really good in the black communities because in the ghetto communities because a lot of times there's parents who are fortunate enough to have a little bit of extra money that they can pay for a charter school, or they meet the requirements to go to a charter school, and it saves their kid from going to the ghetto school, the ghetto public school where shootings happen and stuff like that, where drugs are rampant and stuff, where they go to the charter school where teachers treat them better. They have more well-designed programs because they're not made by the government, so kids tend to enjoy them more. Charter schools tend to, in a public school, you have a classroom full of kids. Some of them are struggling to keep up with the content. Some of them are bored because they're so advanced, whereas in a charter school, they're built for those students better. The ones who are struggling, they can have their own, private lessons, and the ones who are more advanced have their options as well. Overall, it's done better because it's run as a business instead of the government saying, this is the curriculum. We expect everyone to take these tests at the same time, regardless of their mental capacity. I don't know if you've seen that meme. It was a comic or something where it was like it was a picture of like an elephant, a giraffe, a fish, a frog, and a monkey. And there was a teacher, and it said, this is pretty much what school is. And the teacher said, first one to climb the tree gets an A. And it's like all the, the fish isn't going to climb the tree. The elephant's not going to climb the tree. The elephant's probably as tall as the tree, but it's not going to climb the tree. And that's essentially what school is that school is a terrible, horrible place. We are putting a bunch of hormonal teenagers in a room together, awkwardly, silent, watching some old person talk about nonsense that they don't care about. And we wonder why there's school shootings, I just think that everything about the modern day school system is terrible. And there's innovations out there. I actually watched a video about a program that Bill Gates helped start that was like an online school program that you still go to school, so it's not like it's homeschooling, but everything you learn is from the computer. And they have programs, and it's more engaging for the kids because it's like learning through games and interesting videos, and there's so many more ways that you can make school better. But the government's like, we're just going to go with the same program that we've been doing for 200 years since the beginning of this country. We're just never going to evolve that and make it better. And I think privatizing the education industry would be a lot better. It'd be more expensive, but I think that we'd get better education overall, and I think it could be more efficient. We could go to school for shorter amounts of time and allow kids to have their childhood, actually, instead of robbing them from their childhood with school and homework.
Yeah, but doesn't the school and homework kind of prepare you for life?
No, it does not.
I'm not saying in what they teach, but I'm saying in how you go about your life. Because what you're probably suggesting is like kids up to 13 stay home and watch cartoons, or play.
If
you got to get up early.
Kids who are robbed of all of their time spend all their time thinking about TV shows and video games because in the small amount of free time that they have, they want to get the most enjoyment out of it, and that's through TV and video games. Whereas if you cut school in half, made it more efficient, and started school later in life, it's like those kids could have time to get out of their rambunctiousness, and they wouldn't be spending all their time playing video games because they get bored of video games because they were like, I've played video games for a couple hours today, let's go check out what outside's like, But instead it's like, you have to go to school for 7-8 hours, you have to do your homework when you get home, which sucks, and then you have to eat dinner, and then you have an hour of free time before bed. Are you going to go outside and play, or are you going to turn on the video games, It's like, of course they're going to turn on the video games because that's the most high-impact entertainment right away. But if we gave them more time to enjoy the video games, and they could go out and play outside later and learn, be children. And I understand your argument saying that it gets them ready for work and stuff and being responsible and having to wake up early and stuff like that, but there's other ways you can do that. And also, why does the school and education have to do that? Why don't their parents teach them responsibility?
Well, that's what I think a lot about how school is becoming. I would say I more support charter schools now. And my answer to this would be yes. I think back then I voted no. I don't know. I'm not super well educated on charter schools, but I know that, now they're starting to teach, that there's 17 genders you can identify as. And I was just reading something about how some state or another or school district is now teaching that sex and gender are different things, and just things that really should be probably taught at home. Like sex education should probably just be taught at home. It's just the fact that parents don't want to do that, so they outsource it to the schools. And decide that everybody's ready at the same age. So.
Well, I think that sex falls in line with biology, so it would make sense that in the biology class they would cover that stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of what sex ed is.
But also, sex education could be done so much better on like a computer program, because it could, instead of a teacher having to awkwardly explain it to a bunch of giggling kids, the kids could be watching their computer program and playing games or doing other fun activities that teach them the same lessons and teach it to them without bias, because you either get teachers who are really Christian and they're like, abstinence is the only way, or you get teachers who are super liberal and say, if you have a wiener, you're kind of bad,
Those are good points.
But sex and gender are different.
How?
Sex is what you're assigned at birth, and gender is how you identify. Okay. That's why when you're filling out like official papers, it doesn't say gender, male or female. It says sex.
Except sometimes it does. It's just that liberals want to change the semantics of it, which is fine.
I mean, think about like Austin Powers, the first Austin Powers movie. He's filling out that thing when he goes to the future, and he's like, sex? Yes. You know?
I think there's a difference between gender and gender identity, sure, but let's just call it what it is.
Well, I think it's also like words can change. Like gay used to mean happy, but gay now means homosexual. I think that sex and gender, 20 years ago may have meant the same thing, but nowadays we understand that. And this is coming from someone who doesn't necessarily believe in transgenderism, I'm still quite unsure about it myself. However, I try to be accepting of people. But I do think that just like I dislike when people call Native Americans Indians because it's confusing me with people from India, So I prefer, I call Native Americans not because I'm politically correct, but because it makes sense. And that's the same reason why I refer to sex and gender as differently, is not because I necessarily agree with it. I think people are welcome to live their lives however they like, but because when discussing those things, it makes sense that sex is, do you have a penis or vagina, and gender is, do you feel like you have a penis or vagina?
I mean, yeah.
So I just use it for the, I don't know if semantics is the right term, but I just use it because it makes more sense in my brain and when communicating with people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is what it is. It's become, so. Yeah. Anyway, charter schools, fun stuff.
Do you want to do another question?
Sure.
Sweet. What are you going to do? Political compass test?
It's up to you, which one?
Let's go back to the political compass test.
Alrighty.
Pull out that one right there.
Fine, I'll pull out the one that was just hanging out. It's probably going to be just, mumble.
As a libertarian.
Okay. The question is, as a libertarian... Oh, this is a fun, different one.
Oh, good.
Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all.
Oh, goodness. Can I read that one again?
You sure can.
Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree, agree, and strongly agree. What do you think, Matt?
I would say I agree. Like when somebody takes a bunch of paint and throws it at a canvas, don't call that art, just call it what it is. You threw paint at a canvas. Like art needs to portray something. It needs to, otherwise we get into this whole like ambiguousness of anything can be art, blah, blah, blah. Like, why don't we just call something what it is? You shit on a canvas, just call it what it is. Like, art is a drawing. Like if we're talking about the physical art, it's a drawing or it's a painting or something that, is, you're drawing it to represent something, but abstract art is just nonsense.
I disagree with you, but why is this question on the political compass?
Let me tell you why, because it wants to know if you are a hippie or not, pretty much. Because hippies would be like, everything's art.
So you think the more you disagree, the farther right you are, and the more you agree, the farther left you are?
Probably. That's what I'm thinking. And I say disagree, not strongly disagree, because, again, art is...
Wait, you say you agree. It says abstract art that doesn't represent anything.
I agree. I don't strongly agree because, art can be different to everybody. It is an eye of the beholder type thing. It, there are some cool things, like you go to a museum and you see like somebody's used a bunch of wire to create something like, I don't know, I'm not explaining it well, but I've seen abstract art that is interesting. I just don't think, if you open the door to somebody's room and it's like, they got clothes all over and garbage all over, like, oh, this is art, this is their art. No, that's not art. That's a dirty room. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just call it what it is. So if you're making something and it's different and it's not ordinary, how you would usually go about it, then that's one thing. But if we say abstract art is art, then just anything can become art. So
I disagree with you, and I disagree. I would strongly disagree with the question. I think your final statement that you said, the final thing you said was anyone can call anything art, and that's, as an artist myself, in my, I create content, I've made music, I've done stand-up comedy. I think that anything can be considered art. I watched a video on YouTube recently talking about how movie trailers, are not art, that they are a commercial designed to sell you on a product. And I disagree. I think the person who made that trailer, yes, they may have made the trailer to sell you something, but their work on that, like, if they sold you on it, I think you could say that is even if they didn't sell you on it, but I think they could say, I put the work into this. This is a piece of art. There's people who say, the person who writes the speeches for the president, that if they're really good, he really is an artist. He's I don't know the exact phrase that they usually use, but I think anything can be art. Yeah, I think anything can be art. I think that if you throw your clothes around the room, that's not necessarily art. But if you purposely did that and present it and say, this is my room, this represents me, this represents, a kid or whatever, then that could be art. I think
that's really
if you splatter paint on a canvas, that doesn't mean that everyone else values it, but if it's something valuable to you, then that's art. I'm a big supporter, big supporter is kind of a weird term, but I think art should be free. I think I'm a big fan of like YouTube and other services like YouTube, like SoundCloud or Spotify, where the users can get the content for free and the artists have to find other way to make money, whether it's through advertisements or like donations through Patreon or like selling merch or something like that. And with the music industry, a lot of musicians are like, people aren't buying my music anymore, and it's like, good, art should be free. You should learn to make your money in other ways, like touring or selling merch or doing Patreon. And that our content is free, and I think our podcast is art. Even though
really, this is art. This is a discussion, asshole.
I think it's art. I think that what we are creating here is art. People can tune into it and enjoy it, and it can be meaningful to them.
So,
or it doesn't. Meaningful doesn't even have to be the way they could. If they laugh at us, I think that we created some sort of value in their life, and I think that we're creating value for ourselves as well.
I think that's all just real stupid and hippie. Like, I think everything you just said, like, you might as well just be smoking a joint with a peace flag next
well,
to
I
you.
think as a libertarian, I think it comes down to, like, free speech and restrictions on things. If the government says there shouldn't be any restriction on art because of free speech, I think everything is art, so there's no
We're
reason.
not talking about that, you asshole.
Well, I also think, like, did you ever see Dexter, the show Dexter?
Dexter's Laboratory?
No.
Oh, yes, yeah, okay, yeah. yes. I don't know why my brain went to
the
Dexter's,
way he murders people, like, he ties them down and he does it in, like, an artistic way. And it's like, murder is wrong, clearly, because you're taking away someone else's right to live, but that doesn't mean it can't be done in an artful manner. Like, Hannibal Lecter, he put a lot of time and effort into cooking the humans, and I think cooking is a form of art. And he was like, instead of just eating raw humans, he cooked them up as a delicacy and said, this is the finest meat, I will treat it like gold. And I think that that's an art, and it's wrong, obviously, because murder is wrong, but I think that anything can be art if you put time and effort into it and present it as art.
Why is everything got to be so dark with you?
I like dark things. I'm into death metal.
Well, yeah.
And that death metal is a perfect example. A lot of people will look at Enya or Toxic by Britney Spears, Matt, and they'll be like, this is art. And they look at death metal and they say, this is not art, this is just noise. Whereas I look at death metal and I say, this has created so much value in my life and it means so much to me. Death metal is art, even if it sounds like noise to you. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just giving my stance on what I think art is.
And that makes sense. So that's why you don't get as strongly from me.
It's like, so you don't think that speeches can be art?
think poems can be art. I think speeches are just...
What about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech? You don't think that that's art?
It depends on what you want to call art, but his I Have a Dream speech was not abstract. It was to a point. It was well written.
But in the end, speeches are just mouth sounds. Like, that's the exact same reason why I dislike that society tells us we can't say the N-word, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who give the N-word power, and it's just a mouth sound, you know? So why is someone who doesn't speak English hears Martin Luther King's speech and it's meaningless to them, but to us it's a really powerful speech. It's something that we quote all the time.
Oh.
I don't know.
No, that's you get a good point there, which, again, that's the whole, like, beholder thing, you know, but I think you're thinking about it a lot more in, like, a lot more of a broad sense than I am, as I'm just thinking about, you know, somebody who just observes a family eating dinner and is like, I'm taking a picture of this. This has meaning. Like, let's examine this, you know. Like, some people are just grasping at straws.
What do you call the Last Supper?
That's not what we're talking about.
That is taking a picture of someone eating.
Okay, first of all, the Last Supper was made like 1,500 years after the Last Supper happened.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they didn't have photography at the time. They painted a picture of a representation, which is what a photograph is.
That's what I'm sorry, what was the point again?
Because your example was, this family eating dinner is meaningful to me.
My point
I'm going to take a picture of it.
Have you ever seen those artists that, like, they're just grasping at straws to call something art?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
that's what I meant. Like, somebody just walking into, like, you know, a family eating dinner, just like...
Well, I think a lot of art is subjective, you know, just like... you and I like different kinds of music, and we didn't choose to like that kind of music. That's just what our ears told us that we like. And to each of us, we view our art differently. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and I view abstract art as not art.
I'm not trying to change your mind or anything, just having a discussion here. But I still don't know why this question was on the. I feel like immigration would have been a good thing to talk about, because the political compass test doesn't talk about immigration at all.
We can still write it.
They were like, hey, let's put in this question.
It makes sense to me, because it's got people like me who think logically and people like you who think emotionally.
Like, yeah, but it's the political compass test, not the emotional.
Logical people are more conservative. People like you with your hippie flags that you think are art.
But I would be considered when I took the test, I was in the lower right. Like, I was far right. And
I remember the last one. You were like Hitler.
I know. Well, Hitler would be top right.
That's true.
I was low right. But
you were pretty far right. Like, you were like at 8 out of 10 on that.
Yeah.
That was scary.
I know.
Like, even for me.
But that's why, well, first of all, we both agree this test is nonsense.
Exactly.
But, like, if you're doing an emotional test, like, where are you emotionally? This question would make sense, but I could have my same thought and still be a Republican. I could be Hitler and have this thought. Hitler was an artist. And he became Hitler because...
how was he an artist?
He was a painter.
Oh, I thought you meant like the...
Oh, no.
I was like, and it got real dark here.
The way he threw those Jews into the gas chambers, man.
I thought that's
was
where you were. Honestly, I mean, some of this crap that comes out of your mouth, I thought that's where you were going with that. I didn't know he painted.
Yeah. There's a bunch of jokes about... That was really good. That was amazing. He was just... The way he gassed those Jews, it was wrong, but it was artistry.
It's like Dexter. Same thing.
God damn it. There's a bunch of jokes about how he was an artist in real life. He was a painter, and there's actually some people really enjoy his paintings. But there's a joke about, I think it might have been in Family Guy or something, where he's like sitting there painting and someone says, like a Jewish guy comes up to him and says, your art is trash, and that's when Hitler had his turning point of like, fuck the Jews, man. Pretty funny. Good stuff.
Anyway, fun.
Nice. Yep. Any final thoughts from you?
Death metal is trash.
Death metal is trash. Ouch, that hurts me on the inside. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate you turning in. Don't forget to write us an email at quadrant4politics@gmail.com. That's the number 4, not spelled out. And you can catch us on YouTube. Leave us a comment there as well. That's totally okay. And you can catch us on most major streaming podcast services. And we'll see you in the next one.